So here we are in week 6 of Collide. This has been an amazing series. If you've missed anything, go back and watch it. Now, this past weekend, we spent time in John 4, 1 through 42, where we encountered the story of Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. Now, the big idea for this past week was that only Jesus can quench my thirst. Now, I'm speaking metaphorically, just like Jesus did with the woman at the well. You see, how I quench my thirst for fulfillment has everything to do with helping people identify their need for a relationship with Jesus and embrace and accept Him themselves. Now, in a review of this weekend, first, I need to know that God works out encounters with me, just as He did with the woman at the well. Jesus pursues us on common ground every day. He doesn't label me like others can. Instead, He sees me for who He has made me to be. In order to understand this, I must surrender my tendency to avoid real issues. We see the woman at the well did this when Jesus spoke to her about the intimate relationship that she was having. Now, next, I need to surrender my tendency to avoid my issues and start asking, why do I avoid my real issues? It may be a number of things, from feeling too overwhelmed to feeling guilty, or maybe I'm just too frustrated because, like you, I've been there before and I've tried and I've failed. Now, these are just a few, and they may sound familiar, but one of the important steps that I've learned is that I must avoid relationships that leave me empty and see that healthy relationships build me up rather than tear me down. As I am building these quality relationships, it is important that I do not hide behind a religious facade, but that I be real and transparent. Now, lastly, when Jesus becomes my Messiah, my story becomes contagious. I have to ask myself a few questions once I have surrendered my life to Christ. When I commit my life to Him, will I continue on my dry state of spiritual dehydration? Or will I believe that my story has power? And the last question, will I hide, or am I going to share my story so that others can encounter Him just as I have? Now, here's a question I want you to discuss. What do you think causes us to be in a place where we are dry and thirsty? Talk about this for a few minutes together.
I can't believe that we are already in the last week 6 of our sermon series, Collide. It seems like we just started. So, as we finish off our series this week, we've been discussing what happens when people collide and how it exposes our thirst and need for a relationship. I mean, a virile and vital and real relationship with God. So today we're going to be spending time in John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, and we're going to be digging into the account of the adulterous woman brought by the Pharisees to Jesus. So let's go ahead and jump into the text and uncover the value of this story. It's an amazing and intriguing story. So I want you guys to take the next 10 minutes or so and read John, the Gospel of John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and then John, chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, and discuss the details and the important parts of the text. And this is just interesting, and then discuss it within your group for a bit. Now, there are many areas of this account that I find really interesting. I mean, like in this situation, the Pharisees reveal they're scheming and their corrupt hearts. It's impressive. The Pharisees tried to make it sound like it was an honest request for helping them in the pursuit of justice, but justice had nothing to do with it. Notice what verse 6 says. They were trying to trap him into saying something that they could use against him. That's what they were doing. They weren't interested in justice and definitely not grace or compassion for this woman. I mean, she's broken, but she's just this woman that they're using. They're only interested in trapping Jesus. Now, the price for adultery back during this time was steep. The Old Testament listed adultery as a capital crime, actually, in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10. You should check it out. Anyway, the religious leaders, they just hoped to stump Jesus in the reality of the dilemma. I mean, if he agreed with the Old Testament law and called for her execution, then they could accuse him of really rebellion against Roman law. Because since AD 30, the Romans had taken away the Jews' right of capital punishment. And then, if he said she shouldn't be stoned, well, then they could accuse him of false teaching and really discredit him with the people because of what the Old Testament law was speaking about and really mandated. See, that's what they're up to. They thought they really had him, but Jesus really had it handled. So, before we continue, let's take a moment and look at this following question. So, in your lives, has there ever been a time where someone leaped to a kind of a snap judgment and maybe did not hear you out? Or, like, have you ever done this yourself to somebody else? And so while you talk about that, I want you to discuss approaches and best practices that can assist us in not making snap judgments or help correct, those who are. Like, help them to maybe not do that. Go ahead. All right, let's pick back up in the story. So why does Jesus stoop down? I mean, is he just stalling for time? I don't think so. I mean, he'd been tested many times like this and was never caught off guard. And here, he clearly smells something really rotten. I mean, not just that they were willing to use this woman to get at Jesus, it's something far more immoral, really. I mean, do you smell it? It's the stench and the condition of their hearts rotting before him. I mean, let's further unfold the complication of this situation. So Jewish civil law had really very strict conditions under which a crime like this was punishable by execution. It was super specific. It required that they get the person that was caught in the act, Numbers 5:13, but with the other party. Yes, in the act. I will leave it at that. The question I always ask is, where's the dude? Where's the man? The law clearly states that both parties were to be produced and prosecuted. That's in Deuteronomy 22. And the last time I checked, it took 2 people to commit adultery. So if they caught the woman in the very act, as the text says, where's the guy? I mean, it's obvious that something is not right. They are not even following the laws that they hold so dear. I mean, I wonder if they were in cahoots with the man in this situation or had worked out some deal. And this would make them actually, from a culpability perspective, partners in the crime and a part of their own adulterous claims. This point is important to really understand and comprehend and wrap our minds around it. Jesus' response to them in verse 7 when he says, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. I mean, what is Jesus thinking and what is he writing in the dirt? Nobody knows for certain because it just doesn't say. I mean, whatever he wrote, at least initially, it didn't back them off, right? I mean, they're still on it. And what Jesus means in whoever among you who is without equal guilt in this specific case be the one to initiate the penalty, I mean, he's discerning their stench and was letting them know that if they initiated her execution, they were also initiating their own condemnation. I mean, think about it. And the older ones caught on more quickly and did the only smart thing that they ever did in this entire incident. They left one by one. And as they left, the case against her under Jewish law left with them. So let's take a moment and really talk about this next question. You ready? So, what do you think Jesus was really trying to teach the religious leaders? Like, what was he trying to show them? And what can you and I learn from this? And how do we apply this same lesson that Jesus is really trying to teach them? How do you and I grasp it ourselves? What's the lesson for you and me? Go ahead and talk about that. Now, at the very end of this account, in verses 10 and 11, it says this: Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, and imagine being her. He says, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" And she says, "No, Lord." And then Jesus says, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." Jesus does not say explicitly that he forgives the woman, but it's implied in the passage, as Jesus does not condemn her and then tells her, "Don't sin again." So here we seem to have another occasion when Jesus expresses his divinity as only God can forgive sins. We can't forgive sins. The woman was almost lost forever in the death of her execution, thirsty for real life rather than the empty sin she was caught in. She has a new life, a second chance, and hope now that she has met the Messiah. I mean, imagine being her. So as we end our time together, I want you guys to close with this question in mind. How do you see God when you are in a difficult, super tough situation? And then how do you treat others when they're in a difficult situation? Like, do you withdraw from them? That's often our tendency. Or judge them? Or do you show compassion? It's tricky. It's hard. And I just want you to talk about that and kind of explain how it is that you approach it and what your prayer point is as it relates to this very issue in your own life.